Good afternoon and welcome to the A-Level Music Preparing for 26 Assessments support session. My name is Jeffrey Hole. I'm Subject Advisor for Music and Music Technology at Pearson. First things first is just a couple of things. We are over the internet, so it can cause some issues with sound and connection here and there. If you do experience any problems, the first thing to do is to try logging out and then logging back into the session. That quite often fixes any issues that you might experience with sound or the slideshow showing. There is a recording of this session, so that will be made available in a few days after the session. I will put that on my YouTube channel, and I will also make sure that slides are sent out as well. So if we move on from here, so the agenda for today's session is have a review of the 2025 series, go through some things that came out of the examiner reports that are available for that series, just some of the sort of highlights and things that can help centres and learners improve things in future series. Have a look at the post-result services that are available to you for learners that sat in the 2025 series. Just a brief overview of the requirements for performing and composing in the 26 series. Have a quick look through submitting work on LWT and the general tips for that process. Highlight any training that's coming up for A-Level Music, resources available, and there should be some time for any questions if you do have any at the end as well. So if we look at reviewing the 25 series, starting off with performing, just some general tips for improving and making sure that the submission process and the examining process is as smooth as possible for you and the examiners, really. So ensure that there is accurate timing and program selection for your candidates, making sure that the total duration that you put on the pass forms is correct, making sure that you are using the timing of the pieces and any time in between pieces isn't counted. So avoiding any errors on those pass forms to make sure that it is a smooth process and everything is accurate. And making sure that the program of music that is performed meets the minimum time requirements. So making sure that candidates are meeting that, because if they don't, there is a proportional penalty depending on how far under that time they are. That's published in the appendix of the specification, but it is applied by Pearson during the examining and marking process. Clarifying difficulty levels, making sure that if you do know the difficulty level of a piece, that's given clearly on the pass form. There is a space on the pass form now to indicate difficulty level, so you could use reference to grade exam syllabus or pages of the difficulty level booklet, because that is the difficulty level booklet is the first sort of thing that examiners will look at to check the difficulty level of pieces against. And then obviously it difficulty level booklet, although it does get updated here and there, it doesn't include some of the new syllabi that have been released by the different graded examining boards. So if there is a piece that's in there that's included on a syllabus, you can include reference to that syllabus as well, and examiners can check that. The other thing to mention about difficulty level is trying to ensure that where there are differences in the difficulty level of pieces performed, trying to make sure that that is marked clearly on the PAS form, so the examiner can then make a decision on what the overall difficulty level of the performance is, because that is done on a holistic basis. So they would need to see the difficulty level of each piece to make that decision there. Recording quality, trying to use the best possible equipment in your centre to record that, but making sure that it is an ambient room recording, which can take a little bit of playing around with the position of any microphones to make sure that it is in a position that picks up the accurate sound within the room and avoids recordings where accompaniment or if it's placed closer to the learner being assessed, that it's not actually overpowering either the accompaniment or the solo performer. I just saw something come in the chat. Yes, so I will be sharing the slides from the session at a few days after this, so I'll be sending that through. Then making sure that scores are sort of arranged correctly in the correct order when they're uploaded to LWT, making sure that that they are all in a single file in the correct order, making sure that they are orientated in the correct way. We do see occasionally pages scanned upside down compared to other pages, or put in wrong order. So just making sure that that is all done correctly. I'm still happy for us to put it in as single pages labeled in the correct order. It can be done as single pages in the correct order and numbered like that. It is easier if it is all a single file for the performance, because of the way the examiner end of the system accesses the material. So they can literally click on a file and that would open up, and it's like a PDF viewer that they would see. So if it's a single file, they can then move along the pages, whereas if it's single pages, they would have to open up each file at a time. How would you go about recording a solo performance within an ensemble? I'm assuming from that they are doing an ensemble performance and a solo performance within the same recording. I mean, with any of those situations, it needs to be a continuous, unedited recording. So you would need to manage that situation and make sure that you can record that all in one sitting with as little space in between pieces as possible, would be my advice there. Moving on to sort of guiding learners and supporting learners in the process. So obviously support your learners to choose pieces that are within their ability. It is sometimes better for a candidate to perform slightly simpler music that they know well and can perform well, because it can achieve better marks than struggling to try and perform something more difficult, which is then beyond their ability, because the way the marking grids could penalise that more than it scales up because of that higher level of difficulty. So making sure that you're encouraging learners to select pieces that are appropriate for their standard. Obviously, making sure that the pieces are going to meet the minimum duration, and not going to excessive lengths as well. We do see some submissions where they are very long submissions that go well over the required time for this component, and you can see that performers do grow tired nearer the end, and that's where mistakes can creep in. And because we mark the whole submission, that can obviously impact the marks that can be achieved there. So that is then taken into account. Making sure that learners understand the assessment grids and what's required for each level, going through those and looking at how examiners use those grids to award marks, because then learners can critically evaluate their own performances, record themselves actually going through the pieces, and be critical of themselves and see where they can improve their performances as well. If learners wish to present more than one instrument or voice, ensure both are performed at a similar level, because, as mentioned, that difficulty level is taken as a whole across the submission and is applied holistically. So if pieces are performed at large differences in difficulty level, that can obviously impact and lower the difficulty level of the whole performance from that higher difficulty of that one piece compared to the other. So just being aware of that. And then obviously encouraging learners to perform to their audience. Announcing names and pieces isn't required, but having that communication with the audience to enhance their overall performance is obviously encouraged as well. Moving on to component 2, composing. Making sure that learners are selecting briefs that allow for contrast and coherence in structure, and also reminding them that free compositions should really be one continuous movement. We do get questions most years about multi-movement pieces for the free compositions, and those tend to struggle to show the coherence overall between the whole submission, because of the nature of that composition being the multi-movement piece. making sure that learners, again, understand the assessment criteria throughout their composing process, again, so they can reflect on their compositions and critically assess how that marking grid would be applied to their work as well. Support effective submission practices, making sure that all the materials are there, so the scores, the recordings, any commentaries that are there, and submitted in a format that's easily readable and that they should be in like correct order and things like that as well. Avoid submitting things where it's a proprietary software file like Sibelius or a MIDI file, because they are difficult to actually access in there for the examiners. And then things that are on the rise is making sure the use of AI, because that's a big thing that is happening. Making sure that that is monitored, that they're not using AI in a way that shouldn't be used. Obviously, they can use it to generate lyrics, or they could use AI to generate the brief that they're working to for a free composition, but they shouldn't be using AI to create any material that is assessed. And it's everything is completed under the correct conditions for the assessment, so the free or brief composition or the brief assessing technique. I did see a question come in. So the spec doesn't state the free composition must be a single movement. It doesn't state it, so it's more a general observation that where multi-movement pieces are submitted, they can it can be more difficult for them to show coherence across the submission and the different movements from one continuous movement piece composition there. Okay. General advice for supporting learners with the free or brief composition. Obviously, help learners develop and have good starting points, well-shaped ideas and phrase structure. If the initial ideas are weak, that often leads to repetitive submissions that obviously don't develop well across the whole submission and across that composition, which can then impact the levels that it can reach on the different marking grids. Make sure that learners are planning the structure of their piece in whatever style they are working in classical or pop songs formats. Again, don't rely solely on repetition to fill time, making sure that the work is developing over the duration of the piece. Promote expressive contrast, making sure that they're using musical elements to create like a journey through the piece, using different emotions and feel within that piece and different moods. Support effective presentation, so making sure that scores are clear, commentaries are concise and aren't too long in terms of the material that's included in there, because when they are very long commentaries, they tend not to have too much detail around all the necessary things, and kind of go off on tangents and don't really go through all the detail that may be needed in there. So keeping that concise and focused on the musical elements and the terminology in there. And then making sure that everything is in the correct formats and ready for submission. A few things around the brief assessing technique. So getting learners used to checking for part writing errors, obviously parallels and exposed intervals, when you're certainly thinking about the bar chorales in there. Promote stylistic awareness, so obviously having that awareness of the stylistic conventions for whichever brief they have chosen, making sure that if they're doing the remix, that they're using samples and creating that sort of more dance style elements in there, and then also making sure that they are meeting the requirement of the brief, making sure again for the remix that they're using the required samples, or they're using the correct stimuli material for the different briefs in there, and making sure that they are meeting the minimum length requirements for the different briefs and then overall as well. Then finally moving on to component 3, appraising, just some general tips here. Obviously promoting regular listening and familiarity with the set works, going through the different sections and making sure that learners are familiar with different musical elements and that they know those set works. Teaching the key features and musical vocabulary using those set works, so that they are able to recognize different musical elements in other pieces of music as well, and using those that precise musical vocabulary, because obviously when they get into the extended response items, they do need to bring in other pieces of music that can be other set works, but could also be other related music to the area of study, and making sure that they are using relevant examples in there. So one thing that is in there is about training learners to write well-structured essays, making sure that they are discussing the musical features and explaining the effects of those, and making sure that they are linking the musical features with examples from other relevant pieces of music that are justifying those in there. And then finally, emphasize contextual knowledge. Again, know the context of each set work, including the data composition and composer background, because that can be built in and to the essays, and it gives the candidates that basis of understanding the set work and the setting of that, and also how it can relate to other pieces of music as well, and the relevance of those pieces of music in relation to it. Is there any way of getting specific training from Pearson about component 3 exam practice? So we don't have any live training at the moment available. There was a session run, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, that was live on the appraising exam. There is material around that, and I believe a recording of that available, but we don't have anything other than that at the moment. it is something that I can take back to the team and see if there's anything further that we can add in as well. Yeah, I do understand that. It is something that we have looked at and provided more material for over the last few years. I can certainly take it back again to the team and see what we can do to help support that further. In terms of in-school training sessions, we can only offer something that is available on our national program. So it would only be a sort of repeat of what's available already that we could offer in those sorts of situations. That would be what's known as centre-based training, and that does come at a cost to the centre to provide that. Other than that, as I said, I can see what other things that we can put in place with the team and see what we can do moving forward as well. Okay, just having a quick look at post-result services that are available for your candidates that sat the 2025 series. So for each component available online, there are the principal examiner reports. They're really useful documents. They go through good practice from centres. They also highlight things where things could be improved as well. Some of those points that I've gone through there would have come from the principal examiner reports there. And then there is also Results Plus, which is a free analysis tool which contains your cohort's analysis for particularly the appraising paper. You can use that to compare the performance of your candidates against the Edexcel average. You can narrow it down to particular types of centres or regions as well. So it's quite good for being able to do that and run some analysis on candidates' performance in the last series. There is the Access to Script service. So for component 1 and 2, performing and composing, it is available as a manual request through Edexcel Online, through the post-result services there, using the option of ATSC. Your exams officer would have to do that for you, and you would need the permission of the candidate to access this as well. But what that can give you for components 1 and 2 is the examiner mark book, which would have the breakdown of marks per grid and any comments that they have made on there as well. So it can be useful for understanding the marks applied by the examiner and their reasoning and understanding of the performance or compositions there. Component 3 is obviously the exam paper, which is via a script viewer, and you can view your candidate's scripts online as well. In that platform, you can download the scripts as well and save those. There is a deadline for that, which is the 12th of December. so you'd need to make sure that you access and download any material that you want by that date. Again, you'd need the candidate permission to access that material. If you do think there is any issues with the marking of candidates' work, there is the reviews of marking and moderation process. For all of these components, it is a review of marking, and there was a priority service. Obviously, that's used for lots of UCAS candidates and applications there, where it would affect university places. That date closed in August, but there is the general deadline, which is the 25th of September. So any applications would need to go in by that date. Yes, sure. With component 1 and component 2, you can use the ATSC option in Edexcel Online. It's usually your exams officer that would have access to do that. You would need the candidate permission before you do it as well. But if your exams officer goes in and makes a request through the post results section of Edexcel Online using the option ATSC, they will get an email with a scan of the front of the examiner mark book. So that gives you the breakdown of marks per grid and any comments that the examiner has made on that page as well. Just as a note on that, I believe that if you have asked for any reviews of marking, that service then isn't available because it's then gone through a different process. Yeah, it's if you haven't requested any reviews of marking on things, that service should be available there. So NEA requirements, we are just into standard practice now. There was obviously during COVID times lots of changes, but just to reiterate what the expectation is now is a single performance of at least 8 minutes. So that is a single unedited recording. It has to be recorded between 1st of March 2026 and submission. The submission deadline is 15th of May 2026. And please ensure that audio recordings are clear, recorded with the best quality microphone that is available, that it's well balanced, and that it's not kind of a coloured in terms of the type of recording, because in some cases with phones, laptops, tablets, and some dedicated like handheld recording devices, they have compression built in, and making sure that that's turned off, because that can actually affect the nature of the recording and how it sounds on that device when that is recorded. So it's making sure that it is a reflection of the sound within the room. For composing, 2 compositions, one free or 2 a brief that was released on the 1st of September. So that is the 40 mark composition, and then one to a brief assessing technique that is you can release candidates from the 1st of April 2026. So the briefs that were released on the 1st of September are available online now, and you can access those, or your candidates can be working on a free composition there. Making sure that combined duration is at least 6 minutes. With that, you have to consider the length of the brief assessing technique. On the briefs that were released in September for the Bart Corral and the two-part counterpoint, there is a set time that is published on the front of that document. So you can take those timings for those briefs to make sure that the other composition, the 40-mark composition, is long enough to meet that 6 minutes overall. There must be at least 2 hours of development, including the final write-up and recording, completed in the centre under teacher supervision for the 40-mark composition. And the brief assessing technique have to be completed in a maximum of 6 hours, controlled conditions, so exam type conditions there for that one. And then everything is submitted by the 15th of May 2026. Looking at submitting work on LWT, so everything for the NEA components is submitted on LWT by the 15th of May. Making sure that PAS or CAS forms are one continuous file. They are usually 1 page for A-level, but sometimes if a candidate performs multiple short pieces, for example, it may go over onto another page, but making sure that is 1 continuous file for the PAS and then 1 continuous file for the CAS form. Audio files preferably should be uncompressed, CD quality, so 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz. If you are using a file format that is compressed, so MP3, for example, you need to ensure that the minimum bit rate is 256 kilobytes per second, because that is again around that CD quality, and everything should be audible then and not impacted by that bit rate. Making sure that preferably that files of scores are a continuous single file for the submission, so 1 for performance, 1 for composition. It does just make it easier to access all of that material and follow it all through. If it's not possible, then obviously it would be accepted as single files for each page, but it does just make it a little trickier overall. There are detailed guides and videos on using the LWT platform on our support pages, and so if you do need further information on how that works, there is the guidance there online. Upcoming training, so I did touch on this very slightly earlier. We do have some training coming up later this term. So in November, there's 2 sessions. On the 11th of November, you have a session on understanding the assessment criteria for the brief assessing technique compositions. So that will go through examples of work, and you'll look at how the grids are applied to work in that session. And then on the 13th, there is a similar session that looks at performance. They're 4 till 6 p.m, obviously UK time. So they are there and available to book on to now. And then useful resources. So on our website, we have lots of free resources that you can access that will be useful to you over the next academic year. There are exemplar material packs, course planners, set work guides, all the past training content and schemes of work that is under the teaching and learning materials section of the A-level music page. Past papers and mark schemes and the examiner reports are under the exam materials section, and the exam materials section is also where you'll find the brief for this next academic year as well. And then there's the specification, sample assessment material, and the difficulty level booklet available online as well. I will stop there, and if there are any other questions coming in, I know we've gone through some as we've gone through the presentation as well. Now is your chance to ask anything that you'd like, and I will try and answer things for you. Okay, I'm not seeing any particular questions come in at the moment. So I will move on to the next slide, which has my contact details on. So if you do have any questions that you want to ask, these are the various ways that you can contact us. So there is a contact form on the website that you can complete. There is the email address, teachingmusic@pearson.com, and those will come through to me, or I can reassign them to people that can answer your queries. There is the phone number, may not come directly through to me, but if you do need to ask a question to me, you can phone that and ask to be put through, and I will answer that. When does the ATE service start up again, please? So it should be open now. It does depend on the individual that is asked when that might get answered, because all the Ask the Expert people are going through accepting their contracts for that service at the moment. So it is just starting up. So it's basically open now, but depending on who that goes to, there could be a slight delay. And then the final way of contacting me is the appointment booking service. There's a link on the website for that, and that allows you to book a video call with me and ask any questions that you have there. So it's just another way of contacting me and getting answers. So just moving on to the last slide there. Couple of last things as we are just finishing off a little bit early. there is a rebrand for Pearson happening at the moment, so you will start to see a different logo, and you may well have seen it on different material already. But slowly things will be moving to the new branding, which is a purple color, and so that will be changing. So you might notice things there. And we have just in the last week created a Facebook group that is run by Pearson for GCSE A-level and A-level music and A-level music technology. So it's going to be managed by me, and it's a place for you to obviously ask questions and be able to sort of collaborate with other teachers in there. If you did want to join that group, I will put a link in the chat now as well. So that is something new that we will be running this year, and sort of developing things that go on in that group as well. So if there are no more questions, we can finish a little bit early. I hope you found that useful, and I will send slides and everything out in the next few days, and wish you and your candidates the best luck for the year ahead.